Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As we mentioned earlier, we'll be talking about the economic impact of COVID-19 on the Egyptian economy. And as we all know, Egypt has taken various measures with the start of the pandemic here in Egypt in early March. Several measures have been taken. And in order to know more, we're very much delighted to have with us here in the studio Dr. Zeinab Nawar. She is lecturer of economics. Thank you very much, Dr. Zeinab, for coming today.
Thank you, my dear.
Now, to start with, the measures taken by Egypt to counter the economic impact of COVID-19 here in Egypt.
Yes, the measure that had been done actually by the government and how the government had dealt with the crisis of corona, which is an external, we call it an external shock. So the measures that have been taken by the government of Egypt, actually it was an excellent measures. Because the government of Egypt, what they thought about, how they thought about these measures. First, of course, we know that the COVID-19 had led to the lockdown and the stop of activities for every or most of the countries around the world. True. And one of these countries are China, which are the most and the main source of the raw material to your factories and to the economic activities. This is part of it. So what the government had thought about, number one, is to support the small and medium enterprises and to support the companies and factories that are manufacturers. So number one, how to support the Egyptian manufacturer. And this has happened through the deferment of loans to the banks. And also the deferment of loans also to the households. So once you defer, you have done such a type of deferment of loans.
This alleviates the burden on
the burden, and at least you have some sort of liquidity, so the companies and the factories can at least pay, if you can say, the base wage for the employees and for the labor of these factories. This is number one. Also the support to the households, also the deferment of payments of loans. This also had just removed part of the burdens on the shoulders of the households, because the lockdown affected the consumption and the level of consumption. And also when you do this, at least also you leave a window of liquidity to households to pay and to buy the essential that they do need. Because of the lockdown, so we cannot say that all of the factories and all of the companies will be able to pay the salaries. I think some have been affected. So we can imagine for the households where their incomes will be affected. So they need to at least to pay for the essentials. They need to pay for food. So at least the deferment of loans, this will help them much. Also, the government had made, actually, it was a comprehensive stimulus package offered to different sectors and different layers of the economy. The 500 that had been paid for those who are not working.
Yes, the informal sector.
Yes, some is saying
also
that it's very small, but it has.
Yeah, but they established like a network, Ahelina, for the informal sector to register themselves. And that was a very good step as well to.
Of course, because in this type of crisis that we do have, the first layer that is affected actually is the micro and the very poor
limited
segment
income
of the society. Also, the government had added 60,000 households to the capital on Karama. So this was very important because in
allow me,
crisis,
Dr. Zeinab. Yes, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. And Dr. Zeinab, we were talking about the measures taken by the government, and actually that reflected positively on the Egyptian economy, because the Fitch economic report on Egypt gave some important indicators. How do you see that?
Yes, the Fitch, actually, the report of Fitch about Egypt was very, logic. It talks about the obstacles and how the Egyptian government had dealt with. It talks about also the different packages and stimulus packages that the government had presented during the crisis. And also, the most important thing that all of these credit rating institutions, they just maintained us at B stable. which is very important because we don't want to be less than B actually. And be stable means that our economy is stable in dealing with the crisis. Also, we are able to pay our loans, which is very important. And also, all these types of, important indicators about the credit rating, about the expectations of our GDP growth, we need and we should have a good reflection about our economy, because the government and all of the efforts of the Egyptians, we had done a lot. If we talked about the economic reform and we talk about how to deal with the crisis and how the government is trying to do and to present whatever they can do. Also, as it's for us as Egyptians, we are trying to cope with the situation. So we deserve to have a good image about our economy, and this is what we truly deserve to have at the end.
Yes.
So when the Fitch, IPCA, and Standard & Poor's, they all announced that the credit rating for Egypt is B stable, so it means that we are okay, we are in a good situation, that there is no worries about our economy, that definitely when all of the crisis that we do have will be removed soon, which is the COVID-19 and all of these effects and all of these different phases. So we will be ready to continue what we had started to work on. So these types of international institutions, they truly, and they give a true image. And also they use all the past history of the country. I mean, even in their report, they said Egypt had done good in the economic reforms, had done good in their reform that happened to different sectors, and also Egypt had done a very good effort in dealing with the crisis in terms of the government and all of these types of packages. So this is why Egypt is B stable. So I think they put the reasons for this, and this is what we deserve actually.
Yes. Dr. Zeinab, but does the IMF expect the Egyptian economy to achieve positive growth rates this year despite the current crisis?
Yes, the IMF had said in different reports saying that Egypt will be the only country in the MENA region that will achieve a positive GDP growth. And it had been repeatedly, because the IMF is expecting that rest of the countries in MENA region will achieve a negative GDP growth and economic growth, which is in crisis, unfortunately. So the IMF had stressed that we are one of the we are the leading economy in the MENA region. They expect that for Saudi Arabia, for the United Arab Emirates, for Tunisia, for Algeria, and for the rest of the Arab world to have negative GDP growth. And why we have a positive GDP growth? Of course, the expectations. We used to have expectations, good expectations about the GDP growth before the COVID-19 to be. We expected that in 2020 we'll achieve 5.6% as an economic growth, but because of the COVID-19, so our expectations had been less, to be 4%, 4.1%, which is very normal because of the crisis and the external shock we have. So this is why the IMF is one of the international institutions supporting what the government is doing, and sees that although the crisis, but we are doing well.
And how do you read the performance of the Egyptian economy right now in light of the current crisis?
I will tell you, of course, it's current crisis, and again, I'm saying it's an external shock. It's something that it's not our fault. It's the whatever. It's
something
it's
happening
a pandemic.
in the whole world.
Yes, and it's something out of the hands of the rest of the world, unfortunately. So, of course, there is an economic effect, but the way that we will deal with this problem, the way that we will recover easily from it. I mean, if we see that for some of the activities or economic activities in Egypt, that there is some sort of, they are slow in terms of these activities, so why not that the business and the companies shift to different economic activity in addition to what they do? I mean, it's a way to change the way of thinking and to look for new opportunities. This is on the micro level. On the micro level, the owners of the business and all of the companies, they have to look for other alternatives and to change the way they used to manage their business. This is number one.
Yes.
For the government level, I think it's the time for us is to already there are a lot of effort that have been done in this part, but it's very important to encourage more local industry. I mean, when you depend on the international world now, when you depend on the global economy, COVID-19 had brought in new theories in economics. We used to teach to our students trade, which is very important, and also how the companies, the countries can cooperate and can trade with each other, and how trade brings benefits. Trade brings benefits, but I should work to have a window for my local industry. As a country, I have to look to create alternatives and to create local industries. So whenever I have a global crisis out there,
to cut down the dependency on,
of course, and I need to get the raw material
imports
from China, from India, from whatever. No, I have the Egyptians manufacturer who can manufacture this raw material. So I will guarantee that my factories and my industries will not stop. So it's the time for the government to look for more localization of the economic activities.
This is very important. I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Zeinab Nawar, Professor of Economics.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the valuable information you gave us. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us in this edition of Women's World. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi signing off for now.